Okay, first of all, let's have a brief look over our employees.xlsx Excel workbook. First of all, notice that we have 3 sheets right here. So we have employee data, salaries, and skills, each sheet having a column header and 10 rows representing our employees. The first sheet inside the workbook contains general information about our employees, like the first name, last name, department, phone number, and address. The second worksheet contains the salary of each employee. And finally, the third worksheet contains the most important skills that each of these employees brings to the company. Okay, one more thing to mention here. I'm going to close this file while we are going to work on it from within the Python interpreter to avoid any permission-related issues. Don't worry, however, whenever we want to read something from within the file, or whenever we are going to make changes to the file from within the Python interpreter, we are going to open the file once again to verify our changes. So let me close the file for now, and let me open up the Python interpreter. We have already imported the OpenPyXL module. So first of all, in order to be able to work with our workbook, we should first load it into the interpreter. To do that, I'm going to create this object right here, workbook, equals the name of the module, OpenPyXL, dot, now the name of the method for loading the workbook, so load workbook, and in between its parentheses and also in between double quotes, you should enter the full path to your file. So in my case, that would be d:\employees.xlsx. Okay, after hitting enter, the workbook has been loaded, and now we can work with it and also read various information about it. First of all, let's get some basic properties of the workbook by using the properties attribute. So workbook.properties returns some basic information about the workbook, like for example the date and time of the last change, and also the user that made the last change to the file. We can also get the name of the sheets inside the workbook by using workbook.sheetNames. And indeed we have our 3 sheets from within the workbook, employee data, salaries, and skills, as members of a list. Now this is very useful because we can use this list in our code if we are building an application. For now, let's just focus on other attributes that may prove to be useful when working with workbooks. Okay, so we got the sheet names. Now let's get the active sheet in the workbook, which is usually the first sheet in the workbook. So workbook.active. And as I said, we have the first sheet in the workbook, which is employee data being returned. Now let's see how to reference a sheet by its name using Python. So that would be sheet equals workbook, and in between square brackets and also in between quotes, we enter the name of the sheet that we want to reference. In our case, let's say employee data. Now we can use this object right here in order to perform other operations, as we're going to see later in this lecture. For now, let's see how to create a new sheet in the workbook. And for that, we are going to use workbook dot the name of the method create_sheet, and in between its parentheses and also in between quotes, you should enter the name of the new sheet. Let's call it test sheet. And in order for our change to be applied, we also have to save the workbook. So we have workbook.save, and in between the parentheses of save and also in between single or double quotes, we enter again the full path to the file. So let me enter it once again, employees.xlsx. Okay, at this point the workbook has been saved. Now let's open the XLSX file and check if indeed our new sheet has been created. And as you can see, we have test sheet right here as the new sheet of this workbook. Great. Now let me close the file and let me show you how to remove a certain sheet from the workbook. For example, let's say we have sheet equals workbook of test sheet. So we are referencing this newly created sheet at this point. And now we have 2 options in order to remove this sheet. We can either use workbook.remove of sheet, and let's hit enter. And the second option would have been to use del workbook, and in between square brackets, also in between quotes, the name of the sheet we want to remove. So that would be test sheet in our case, and that would accomplish the same task. As you can see, if we use this second option after using the first one, Python already notifies us about the fact that the worksheet does not exist. So at this point, if we save our workbook once again, and then we open the file, we can see that the test sheet has been removed. Okay, I'm going to close the file once again, and that's it for now. I'll see you in the next lecture where we are going to start working with particular sheets inside our workbook. So I'll see you soon.